Hi, this is Robert Breeze back on the CEO Show, where we interview the CEOs who have really reinvented the fabric of America. We're here today with Maria Ghazal, and she is the president and CEO of the Healthcare Leadership Council, that's always known as HLC. And you had a unique position because there was this enormous change that happened for all CEOs that I know. And we were talking about it day in, day out. It changed the foundation of how business is looked at. And you were actually involved at the center of making that happen. And I found that out, when we first met. So tell the story. Take us back to 2019.
Happily. So I before I came over to HLC, I was at the Business Roundtable, which is the organization in Washington that the CEOs of America, of the largest, best companies in America are members there. And that organization, its purpose is to recommend to policymakers the best policies for economic growth in the United States. And one of the things that we would focus on is corporate governance. What are the right rules and regulations to govern corporations? Because just about 99% are publicly traded companies there. And we started to think. I mean, I had the privilege, Robert, of working with Jamie Dimon, Ginny Rometty, the former CEO of IBM, Alex Gorski, the former CEO of J&J, and they would lead different topic areas. And Alex Gorski was leading the corporate governance committee that I was the lead person for, the lead staff person for. And we started to think through, and we had all these different statements that we had made over the years. The organization is over 50 years old now. All these different statements that we'd make about what a corporation, with the role of shareholders, the role of this, the role of that. And finally, they sat down one day and they said, we need to have one statement on this. It is so important that we say, what is the purpose of a corporation? Because, and how do you lead a successful corporation? And we had different meetings. It was about a year. It was a year of conference calls, in-person meetings. I mean, I can remember going up to New Brunswick, New Jersey multiple times to sit in Alex Gorski's office, and we'd have these conference calls and this is before COVID. Little did we know we could do Zoom, but we would, who was that? Who said that? Writing notes. And we started to put together the statement. And what came about was just a very earnest conversation among these leaders, these icons of business, saying, well, you have to treat your employees well. The employees are the biggest asset you have. And of course you have to, if you're going to be successful, you must treat your customers well. Your customers must come back, whether you're selling oil, you're selling banking, you're selling healthcare. It doesn't matter. Your customers are key. And you know what? To really be successful, you have to be fair and ethical with your suppliers, whether it's on what you're supplying or they're supplying to you. You have to be a good partner, and you have to be a good person in your community. And then we got into a conversation about what's the definition of community, because somebody will say, well, that means the entire globe. And community is pretty well defined in that statement to say community means where you live and act. So it doesn't mean if I'm never in South America, then I'm going to be responsible for that. It means where you live and act. And then, of course, your publicly traded company, your investors are your shareholders. So you need to do right by them. But in order for the shareholder to be treated well, all those other stakeholders have to be treated well. And it is a circular philosophy. And it is actually, I mean, we were thrilled to see the response to it. And frankly, it was a worldwide response, and it was very positive. On the cover of Fortune magazine, it made such a splash, frankly, more than we anticipated. But the thing the funny thing was that time and again, everyone who was participating in this said, I lead like this today. And while this is a statement and it's getting a lot of attention, CEO after CEO at the time, especially those fully engaged in putting it together, would say, this is my personal philosophy of how I lead. And it became something that, because I think there was a perception before that statement that the CEOs wake up every morning and they just think, what's the share price? What's the share price? I only care about the share price. Well, of course you care about the share price, but you are not so myopic that you think only this. You think about the whole picture. Being, having the best employees, doing right by your customers, doing all these things, because that at the end of the day, is the long-term shareholder the winner? Absolutely. Is the short-term shareholder the winner? They will say no, because some of them will say you gave everyone a raise, or you gave everyone a bonus, or you should have cut expenses more. That's not the definition of a successful company, and that's not to them the definition of the purpose of a corporation. It's not to just appeal to the short-term person who wants to hold the stock and flip it. It's the long-term shareholder. And how is that long-term shareholder win? By leading a company and doing the right things by all those stakeholders.